There's always, higher level investigate. What we do is very basic. We catch them, we process them, we set them up for removal. ICE handles detention and removal, so they're the investigative people and they're the removal people.
All right, Mr. Edward Wells, thank you for joining me in the den.
Glad to be here.
All right, so you're coming from a school board meeting in Calallen, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Get all the tea on that. But you're not also just a school board member. You are a border patrol agent.
Yes, sir.
Out of Carrizo Springs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the life of a border patrol agent like right now versus maybe what it was 2 years ago, a year ago?
Morale is very good right now. Very, very different. It's very encouraging because you have people from your immediate supervisor to the sector chief to Washington, D.C., to the president. Everybody supports you all along the way. And the president and the administration is making sure that everybody along the way is supporting you. And, what do you need? What do we have to do? The mission's very different. We're closing the gaps. We're strengthening enforcement. We're not babysitting anymore. We're forward deployed, and I think it's been pretty clear to the American people that, hey, we're doing what we've supposed to do for 101 years. We just had our 101 anniversary in May, since 1924. So it's the same mission, between the ports of entry, your patrol and the border, So morale's high. People are, of course we're in a government shutdown right now. Mm-hmm. So, ultimately morale is a little bit different right now. This is my third shutdown as a government employee. So, you take it a little bit different than.
So are you getting paid or?
No,
not at the moment. I know at the moment. Trump was trying to get somebody paid through the shutdown. I don't know.
I think military.
Yeah. So I was watching a video. I'm not sure who posted it, but I was watching it on my news feed, on my Facebook feed. And it was some coyotes that were on like a raft, and they had, I don't know, about 15 or so people on a raft, or maybe more. Mm-hmm. And they were bringing them across the river, and they were being greeted by Border Patrol agents. And the Border Patrol agents was, how you doing? And I'm like, what in the world was that? And they were even talking to the coyote about him wearing like a military shirt. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what was going on? I don't know how long ago it was, but I'm for sure it wasn't this administration. But did you see that kind of stuff?
It does change with the administration. Mm-hmm. Like the previous 4 years, it was more like a welcoming committee.
Wow.
Because you had a bunch of people giving up. They knew they were going to, seek asylum and be granted some kind of temporary status. So that's not happening right now. For sure.
So
at all.
I'm assuming that a lot of the agents are not cool with just doing that, but they kind of have to do it, right? Like what was happening to, like what you said, the morale, what was happening within the agency? Were agents like wanting to leave, or were they okay with it? What was the scoop there?
You had a lot of mixed feelings. The one of the terms, because I'm like part of the resiliency division, which includes like chaplains, peer support, veteran support, clinical therapists and people like that, which is the resiliency world of the Border Patrol. And moral injury was kind of one of the terms being floated around because, you're sworn, you swear an oath, right, the same oath that the military swears, to defend the Constitution of the United States, right, against enemies, foreign and domestic. Mm-hmm. And during that administration, you have that oath, but at the same time, you're not appreciated, you're not supported. the laws aren't being enforced. They're not being interpreted correctly. So you have a lot of guys that are struggling, but they still have that sense of duty. And I was one of those guys too, which I've almost been in 19 years. So it's a little different than like the rookie, right? The rookie, the guy that's still on probation, that's thinking, man, what did I get myself into? A little different thought process there, but they still had the sense of duty, even though things weren't going, the right way. And of course we crawled out of that with this administration, but there is a high level of attrition always. That I think that was the highest level in those 4 years I had ever seen. People retiring as soon as they're eligible instead of, I'm going to work 5 more years. I'm going to go to mandatory. Like as soon as they're eligible, people were retiring. So it was a lot different.
More stressful?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What was making it more stressful though?
Just the fact, like I said, the moral injury was the big part of it, but also just not really doing what you signed up for.
Yeah.
Not enforcing the law, not out there in the field catching the bad guy, right? A lot of the bad guys were getting away. That's been our business from day one. Like between the ports of entry, you got a lot of bad people coming in. They're not all bad, but we have a lot of drug smugglers and a lot of people that just leave people to die. If they twist their ankle, they just leave them. Like we do have people that have warrants all over the country for any range of serious crimes. So there's always bad people coming across, but I think that gets twisted when people talk about that, like that they're all bad. They're not all bad. They're not all bad. A lot of them are law-abiding people, other than obviously entering illegally. But other than that, they'll work. They'll be law-abiding citizens. Other than that, crossing in. But that's how I think sometimes the left twists it, and like they're not all bad. But right now, there's a bigger focus on closing those gaps, and they're catching a lot more of the criminals right now.
They're not all bad, but the processes that are taking place, right? The travel and the smuggling is giving a vehicle for the bad ones to come in.
For sure.
And they're able to hide in that crowd versus not being able to. I remember seeing video footage of bridges out there, and I guess it's Del Rio. Full of people, like a multitude of people just camped out and stuff like that. What were y'all doing with those people?
Well, they so many came across at such a fast time, that there was nowhere to put them. The facilities were full. The detention centers, the stations, were not designed to house thousands upon thousands of people. So basically, they had to keep them somewhere. And I know a lot of those folks got flown out, bussed out. Some of them, I don't think we even know what happened to them. They just needed to get them out of that area. But that's what happened, is you have such a mass come across that all of your avenues of transport, airplanes, buses, facilities are maxed out, and really there was nothing else that could be done with them at the time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people just bled into the population.
Yeah, millions.
And now the administration's trying to get some out.
Yep.
And it's becoming very difficult for them to do that.
Yes.
Because they're hidden in the mix.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that and looked. What was the hardest part about that? Just not being able to do your job?
Yeah, just you don't sign up to be a Border Patrol agent thinking you're gonna be babysitting and passing out diapers and formula and babysitting people in the hospital that are having a baby or just have regular health conditions and they've never addressed them. A lot of people have underlying conditions that they just never knew of until they cross and they're having a heart attack, whatever. And of course we're fitting that bill, right? The American people, the taxpayers. So that was the hardest part, is just doing things that you never thought you would have to do as a law enforcement agent.
As a Border Patrol agent, I'm sure you see tragedies out there with people that are trying to cross illegally, happening out there in the brush and in the deserts. And A friend of mine that was a police officer in Falfurrias used to tell me that they used to find dead people out there in the ranches all the time. Is that a common thing for you guys to find and to see?
It's very common, especially the area I work in, which really a lot of the Border Patrol area is similar. There's a long way to travel, around the checkpoints and once you cross the river, depending on where you're at. So this time of year when it's especially hot is the worst time. And of course, during the extreme cold months, when it actually gets below, freezing or close to is the hardest time. But it's kind of all over the place. But Falfurrias, I know at one time Brooks County was, I want to say, the highest, had the highest rate of that anywhere in the country because of just the terrain and the sheer numbers of people coming through that corridor and things like that. But it's very common pretty much throughout the Border Patrol.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about how it's cruel to not let them cross illegally that way, but you actually put people in danger whenever you promote illegal immigration like that, where our doors are open and people are just coming over and making that journey because they're willing to take the risk, and then they're put in the hands of coyotes, and young ladies are being taken advantage of, and children are being trafficked and all that. So, the people that are bleeding hearts for that are really not doing them a favor, are they?
No, they're facilitating it. But when you think of the well-oiled machine, in a sense, of getting someone from China or from Uzbekistan, just anywhere, like we get them from everywhere. The pipeline or the system that's in place to get them to not only this continent but to work their way up to the United States, and how that system is been in place for years and well funded to get them to cross our border. Like it kind of I've been doing it a long time, so it doesn't baffle my mind as much. But the average person, I mean, it's a very intricate system that even governments are involved, obviously, in and are influenced, and so it's just crazy to think how someone from that far away can get to our border as fast as they can, and and end up crossing.
Were you able to find out who is funding that kind of stuff?
There's always higher level investigate. I mean, what we do is very basic. We catch them, we process them, we set them up for removal. ICE handles detention and removal, so they're the investigative people and they're the removal people. So we just got to catch them, and then ICE takes over.
And in conversations, they would never give up who
they
them.
Interview people, and they get information that we there's a lot of information sharing between agencies and things like that. So, in the course of investigations, whether it's a smuggling case or just a person from a special interest country, there's information shared and it goes places. And, there's things that happen with that I never see, but there is a lot of information sharing that does turn out to be, fruitful in other areas of the country or even other countries.
So what would be the motivation of another country or an entity or whatever to be funding caravans like that and immigration like that?
I think it's more so the influence like the cartels have on the government, right? It's been that way since long before we were born, and it's probably going to continue to be that way. I think this administration is obviously having the most progress at that, but I think we don't have control over what Mexico does and what El Salvador does. I know right now we are doing a little bit more about some of these boats that they're blowing up out of the water.
Oh yeah.
That's making a difference, but we have some influence, but we're never going to directly change the way that people think or the government operates in a different country.
Yeah, but I mean, there was those caravans were being funded by somebody, like you said, perhaps a government or some kind of entity. They were being given gift cards, type of credit card type of stuff, and supplied in different different ways. So there's somebody bigger that is doing that. What could be their incentive or motivation to be funding them to come into the United States?
I think mainly it's just, the way that certain politicians operate and the way they think about, because really a lot of these people don't end up registered voters. I know a lot of times we say, they're bringing in votes, but it's very complicated to go through to get registered to vote, right? But then some states have pretty lenient laws. So like Texas, it's pretty hard to register to vote, but there's other people in other states that are very influential.
Texas, because it's red though.
Yeah.
And it's harder to pull stuff off like that in a red state versus blue that they are very lenient and they are very lax because they see it kind of like a what do you want to call it, like a crusade type of situation to where they're trying to defeat Hitler. And if you're trying to defeat Hitler, anything goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can justify them lying on applications and letting people without IDs vote and that kind of stuff.
Well, I think a good example was the foreign national that got a commercial driver's license in California that couldn't read English. They don't even know how he passed the test, but California gave him a CDL and killed some people in a accident in Florida. And so that's an example of, you're trying to influence that system, and then you have things like that happen, and that's just an example of it. But they have their reasons, and I think a lot of it's political. But in other states, they don't think like Texas, and it's easier to get those driver's licenses and those birth certificates and things like that.
Yeah, they feel like they have a righteous cause that is leading them to give that opportunity to people. But now with this new administration, the border has almost been completely shut down, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I think in 99% or something like that.
It's pretty much shut down. I mean, as far as what's public knowledge, like on the news and stuff, there's thousands of troops down there that are obviously a big part of making that happen, in different roles. Some of them are support roles, some of them are forward deployed, right there on the border. But that's that's something we've always had as a resource. It just, it takes the right president to say the word and like, hey, get them down there. And so obviously there's going to be gaps, that we have to focus on, but it's definitely, it's the most secure that I've seen it in my nearly 19 years for sure. And even the 30-year guys, because about 35 years is the most time somebody has that's still working. About 30 to 35 years is the max. So they'll tell you the same thing. It's the most proactive and secure that they've ever seen it.
And what's causing it to be secure? Is it manpower? Or just them knowing that it's not going to go well for them if they come? What do you think it is?
It's both. So you have to have a well-oiled system where even if they do make it in, which they do every day, there's no avenue that they're gonna get asylum. Very rare cases, right? Like they're not just handing out asylum. They're not just handing out papers and they're walking. They're getting deported. Detained until they get deported, or they're going to court for charges, and they're going to spend some time in jail before they get deported. So there's not very many options right now. Even the juveniles now, they're trying to find out who their families are, turning them over to their consulates. They're not just, I know you've heard about several 100,000 juveniles that were lost or unaccounted for. Because they would just release them to family, and they'd go to these shelters in which, billions of taxpayer dollars were being funneled to Catholic Charities and, all these organizations, but then they were losing the kids, So now it's like they're being detained, they're getting turned over to consulates, they're getting, it's a lot different.
Were they losing them or were they using them?
Probably probably both. I'm sure.
Is there any like evidence of them being like trafficked and stuff like that?
There seems to be more and more evidence coming out about a lot of things, that we've seen, and I think the president now is obviously wanting to get to the bottom of a lot of stuff that happened. So I think they'll continue to do that, and we've seen people getting arrested and indicted, at high levels lately from the previous administration. I think that's going to just continue to grow as they have more information become available and investigate, further.
And what role is the wall playing? Is the wall completed or
no? It's. I mean, there's a lot of places that don't have any infrastructure or wall, and but the good thing about Texas is that Texas is funding a lot of it, but also the federal government is, since now, not 4 years ago, but now we're funding it, but the state of Texas is spending a lot of money and funding a lot of wall as well.
So it's still happening. It's still going.
It's happening. Yeah, okay. It's happening for sure. Yeah, all that, the stuff that we obviously was sold or something that rusted and Biden never put up, like it's going up. So but the state of Texas, we're blessed to have a state that just puts such a priority on border security. And I mean, without them, we'd have been in big trouble the last 4 years. We were in trouble, but it could have been a lot worse. And then now with the Texas Military Department, which are, they're under different orders by the governor. We have the active duty DOD. We it's a combination of support, but the state of Texas is phenomenal with their, priority in border security. I mean, and it's very evident.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And Carrizo Springs is where you work. Is that like a hot spot for?
I mean, we're pretty far from the border. I mean, it's from what I understand, it was started as checkpoint station. Typically, you got like Freer, Falfurrias, Kingsville. They're checkpoint stations. They don't cover any border. And then over the years, Carrizo Springs took over part of the actual border, which is challenging because it's pretty far from there. But multiple checkpoints and then getting down to the actual border is a challenge. But it's probably one of the most diverse stations I've ever been to, because you have the checkpoint, you have all the highways, you got the brush, the border. So it's almost like you have everything the Border Patrol does at that station. So you have agents that are very well-rounded versus, like, say, Corpus Christi, no checkpoint, they're just working, and no border, well, coastal border, but they're working, highway, and it's a whole different thing. So you have someone that goes from, say, Corpus to Carrizo, they're probably going to be lost, versus the other way around. You're talking about like a well-rounded, agent. And Kingsville, big checkpoint station, big brush, right? But they don't cover any border, so if they started there and they haven't been detailed out or whatever, they haven't worked on the actual border. So every station is different, but Carrizo Springs is very. We have a lot of well-rounded people, because it's pretty much everything that we have. Guys out there on horses, ATVs. Mm-hmm. So it's very. It makes very well-rounded agents, and a lot of those guys go on to be successful in other places because they've kind of done it all, so to speak.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So who is your boss? Is it Tom
Homan?
Yeah.
No. He's the border czar.
The border
right?
czar.
He's a political appointee. So he's really kind of in a world of his own, right? Focusing on the border.
Right. Does he interact with you guys a lot?
Yes.
He does.
He interacts with us. His counterpart, so to speak, would be Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary. But he's kind of in a world of his own, and he's in a position pretty much like Kristi Noem, where he only answers to the president, right? And he's not really in charge of Border Patrol or of Customs or ICE, but he's up there, right? So he's very influential and has a big job. But really, Kristi Noem, she's in charge of Homeland Security, and then Rodney Scott got sworn in as our CBP commissioner, so he's in charge of the whole bureau, and then Border Patrol is part of that, and then we have our own chief as well. So it's a very it's a very, intricate chain of command, so to speak. But the like we discussed, I think before we went on the air was, the president's not going to have anybody in any of those positions that doesn't agree with him and going to enforce his policies, and that he's not going to back 100% because that's just the way he is. So everybody from the patrol agent in charge of my station to the chief of Del Rio sector, which we fall under, to the chief in Washington D.C., and then all the way up, like everybody will be in line with the priorities and the vision, or they're not going to be government employees for the most part.
Have you met Kristi Noem or Tom Homan or?
I have not. I've met Michael Banks, which is our chief.
Michael Banks,
he's he's B1. He's the chief of the Border Patrol in D.C. And he's just like anybody. Like if you go meet any of the staff up there, like and we see them on TV and whatnot, like you're just blown away at their skill. They're experts at what they do. They have a passion for it, but they've done it, right. Like Pete Hegseth, like he's done it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last cabinet, you had a bunch of people that they hadn't really done
that
much.
wear
but these
dresses.
Guys, yeah, and yeah, and so you got guys that have been there, done that. Like
right.
Homan started as a Border Patrol agent, like I think in 1983. Like he's been around for, and he obviously ended his career with ICE and then came back as the border czar. But I mean, these guys are they're the best at what they do. Rodney Scott was the chief under the last administration, and it didn't work out, right, because it's a whole different ball game. And so Trump knows that and brought him back as the commissioner, which is he's in charge of Air and Marine, OFO, which is used to be Customs, and then Border Patrol. He's in charge of the whole thing. So it's encouraging to see just at every level these. And I've interacted with Chief Banks, and I actually got to pray over him in Carrizo Springs one time. We had a luncheon for some. There was some people retiring, and then he came and of course wanted to talk to the troops, and we had a blessing over the meal. And I'm an active chaplain with the Border Patrol as well. So I probably wasn't supposed to do what I did. I wasn't supposed to speak. I was just supposed to pray. But I called him up because we had him and we had a couple other chiefs there, which is you never will encounter that right at a station. Wow. And I brought him up and laid hands on him and prayed on him. And I don't know what he thought about it. I think he kind of looked a little uncomfortable, but but you got to seize those opportunities, mm-hmm. right? So
absolutely,
me and him got up close and personal, and he knows who I am. I know who he is. And
if the mindset is right, they usually don't have a problem with it. If you're a supporter of the right, if you will, usually they're at least okay with it. Even if they're not Christian, they're usually at least okay with it.
Yeah.
Did you have any run-ins with Mayorkas? How was that guy?
No, not necessarily.
No.
He was just a guy that I think worked for Obama, and then of course mm-hmm. Biden brought him back, and just not very fruitful, not mm-hmm. genuine. We saw a lot of the things that happened, and he could never speak to anything correctly, right. And they didn't want to speak at all. They wanted to hide, because anytime they spoke, then the American people saw like how incompetent we were,
Yeah.
I think the best thing, and any agent will probably tell you this, is that he liked giving out administrative leave days. We call them Mayorkas days. He would every time, like every holiday or any kind of anniversary or anything, he would throw 8 or 16 hours of admin leave at us, and which is free time, paid time off, and all the time he would just and so he was kind of using that, I think, to kind of grow some popularity, but everybody knew what he was trying to do.
Right.
We appreciated it, but it's like that doesn't change our mind that you're not really doing your job, right? But that was one of the, if you ask any agent in the country about Mayorkas, that's what they're going to tell you, is we got about a couple of weeks of free leave throughout the tenure, and that's probably pretty much all he's probably going to be remembered for, pretty much.
Yeah. So from Border Patrol agent to school board member, What made you run for school board? Like what was going through your mind with that one?
Well, it goes. So we were gone about 10 years with the Border Patrol. I left Calallen. Left the state a little bit. Got married, moved around, had a few kids. We've been back. So next year will be 10 years that we've been back. So of course we moved back. My wife went to Toloso. I went to Calallen. Football player, student council president. Like like people call me the mayor, Mr. Calallen, whatever. But and even my kids know, like, man, I'm just Calallen. Like that's where I grew up. So, but to be fair, I was like, hey, she went to TM. Let's just look for a house, right? Let's look for a place to live, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. Well, fortunately, we found something in Calallen, which I was obviously gunning for, but I wasn't going to tell her like no, even though she knew I was kind of like, hinting at it. So we ended up in Calallen. Got 3 kids, right, spread out. They're at 3 different schools right now, and they've. My oldest is a sophomore, and then I have an 8th grader and a 4th grader. So when I got back, I've always served. I've been in law enforcement. I served the country. I served at church. I was always involved. When I even ran for school board back in 2003 after I graduated high school because I was involved in a lot of things. I didn't win, of course, and it was kind of dumb that I did it. But we actually had a debate in the high school in front of all the seniors that were registered to vote. We had a debate, and I think that's the last time it ever happened was 2003. And one thing that it produced was it got more high schoolers that were 18 to register to vote and get out there and do your civic duty for voting. And I didn't win, like I said. I almost did, which was crazy because it was an incumbent that was been around for a while, right?
Wow.
And Calallen, like, hey, if you're an incumbent and you've been around a while, like it's hard to get in there. So I just started seeing things, not really like the Calallen I grew up in, maybe. And of course, we've been involved at Annabelle Baptist Church and teaching kids, and we did that for a while. And so you see things from the kids and hear things from the kids. And of course, I got 3 kids that are in the school, and you're hearing, oh, this teacher said that, or hey, this is what happened, or you're looking at different things, and I'm like, man, you know what? I need to start going to school board meetings, And I went to school board meetings probably about a year, and it didn't take me long to think, you know what? I think I need to run. But it's a challenge in Calallen because the lady that I ran against first had been around for over a decade. A lot of people had been around a long time. We've had a lot of people over the years do a good job. We've had a lot of people that maybe didn't do any job, other than fill a seat. We still got people that are just filling a seat right now. But I was like, you know what? I gotta get involved and gotta get things going. And the biggest thing was the safety and security because, like, I'm law enforcement. We had the school shootings and whatnot. And I'm like, you know what? I have an expertise in, I was a firearms instructor. I was an active shooter instructor for the Border Patrol. I was like, hey, I think this is something I can help with. And of course, once I did get on, we spearheaded, some initiatives to hire, some police officers, get a police department going, things like that. But really at the beginning, it was just, I need to be involved. I need to, offer my expertise. And so that was kind of like my focus was safety and security. But once you get in there, it's like getting thrown to the wolves and you're like, oh man, well, that's not our only problem. You
see the dark side.
We got all these other problems that, and Calallen has a reputation for, we have a reputation and, just because we've done it for 40 years or whatever, it's the right way, right? It's like, no, it's just because you've done it forever, it doesn't mean it's the right way, right? And you've been around long enough to know, like we had, the Danahers and all these people, and phenomenal coach, Texas Coaches Hall of Fame, winningest coach in Texas. We still have Chapman, like incredible athletic dynasty, right? But once you're looking in the weeds, there was still is a lot of issues internally, right? And so that's what really drew my attention to, like, we got to get in here and we got to get our hands dirty.
Yeah, it's interesting how if you want to look at it really for what it is, like the enemy will try to utilize schools to really corrupt our children. And I know I had a guest on sometime back, Betsy Wallace, talking about some of the books that are in the libraries. And I know Calallen was one of those schools that has some books that are prohibited at TDCJ or whatever the initials are, the prison system.
Yeah.
They're not allowed in the prison system, but they're in our schools. I know Robstown was one of those as well, Alice ISD as well. And I know there's some people that are really moving to take care of that in Alice right now because of the podcast. They saw the podcast and saw what was happening out there. You guys have made effort to get rid of some of those books, but you're running into some difficulty getting them all out, right?
Yeah. Citizens Defending Freedom is a huge resource.
Right. They're
going through some changes right now, with they're kind of moving away from their county model to a state model. And, it's busy, like their world is busy, but they're a great resource for things like that. And they came alongside me and we were able to identify a lot of books. And I want to say we took 18, which was about half of them, off the shelf right away.
Oh, really?
Just by, notifying administration, like, hey, I think that we need to take a look at these books. Didn't really develop any policies yet, but just, hey, we need to take, so 18 got pulled right away, which was about half. And then they were going through some more review and whatnot, and there was some discussion on, what we should allow or not allow, and, okay, do we allow parents to give consent and keep it in the library, but then the kid can still go in there, and look at it on the shelf without checking it out. So there were some arguments there, but really at the end of the day, we have more work to do, but I know now some of the new state laws are even more aggressive towards that. And I know TEA and TASB and everybody else right now is going through a bunch of legal review and translating a lot of the new laws to get these books out of our hands. And unfortunately, a lot of these new laws have kind of fast-tracked some things that we've been kind of working on for a couple of years, but now finally there's laws that are,
on your side,
fast-tracking it, right? So it's not like, hey, this isn't just what I believe. Now this is law, right? Like I would have loved putting we talked about putting the "In God We Trust" at the front of every school and 10 Commandments in the classes and stuff like that, right? Like,
so we got the 10 Commandments already.
We did. So obviously when that law passed, then that fast-tracked it because, like, hey, now it's the law, right?
So as awesome as that is, there's some people that are criticizing having the 10 Commandments in the classroom.
For sure.
One of those guys is Tallarico, James Tallarico, I think is his first name. Are you familiar with him? He came out on Joe Rogan. He's a senator, I guess, here in Texas, claiming to be a Christian, but he doesn't like that the 10 Commandments are being put into the schools, alongside with a whole bunch of other crazy beliefs that a Christian wouldn't have. But he says he's a Christian. But he says, what about the Muslim child or the atheist child? That they're going to see those and they're going to feel like they don't belong, like they are not wanted there. I'm like, which one of the commandments would make them feel like they're not wanted? Because those commandments are pretty general. Our laws are kind of based on those. And they said, well, the one that you shall not have any other God before me. That's what they have a problem with, because it doesn't say which God, but it's just like they almost automatically know which God is the one true God, right? Yes. So they get offended by that.
Yeah, it's it's been a challenge, but obviously the law fast-tracked it. We got also CDF got us the contact to get them donated, and the gatekeepers helped out with that,
right?
And just so I have yet to get a certification or an email that says the 10 Commandments are in every classroom in Calallen ISD. You get things like, I all the principals have them, or all the campuses have them.
They have them, but they're not up yet.
Yeah, but I don't. The school board does not have a certification or email or whatever that says these are in every single classroom in the Calallen district. And I know just from hearing from my kids and other friends I have that are teachers and things like that, there were some people that didn't want to put it up, and they were referred to administration, and we don't even hear about those things, because if they are making exceptions, obviously it's illegal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to go at some point walk every single, and they don't think that I would be willing to do that or would do that. I would go walk every single campus
Mm-hmm.
and every single classroom if they let me, which I think they have to let me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if they know I'm coming, then that's different, right?
They'll put them up.
But I would go every class, and I would hope, and we got some great principals and teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't believe in Calallen, right? I get a lot of negative. I have a lot of negative posts and things about trying to fix the negative, but a lot of that gets twisted as in, like, I'm a bigot and I don't really care. Like, why don't I keep mentioning TM? Like, well, TM has it together with this and with that and with that and with this. And then people will say, well, why don't you move to TM? Like, you keep. I was like, I'm not. My wife wouldn't mind that because she's from there, right? But even now, she's like, no, she's ideas. She bleeds the real maroon, right? So, but no, we have TM people that we love too, and I know a couple of board members that go to our church, and they serve, and they have big hearts. We love them, but it's about doing the right thing, and it's kind of hard when you're pointing out deficiencies, or that we're not following a law, or we're doing something wrong. Well, of course it sounds negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's to break that cycle and to make it right. And that's just who I am. So
y'all recently had a teacher that was, students were saying that he was making fun, maybe. I don't know if you would say making fun or condoning the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Well, the way things work is allegedly that's what was happening, right?
Allegedly.
So when I get emails, the way it's supposed to work is you contact the principal, and you give them their issue, right? And they're supposed to look into it, and if they don't deal with it to your standard, you take it to the superintendent, and then the next step would be the board. So lately, well, actually in my tenure for 3 years, a lot of people will send me emails, or if they send one to the principal or the superintendent, they'll copy me on it, because they almost kind of like want to make sure that it gets addressed, right? Which I don't see anything wrong with. A lot of people some of the board members and administration see a problem with that, because that they're getting me involved too early. But the thing that they're seeing is they want to ensure accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've done anything right in a few years, it's at least some parents and people know that, hey, if you want to see accountability or at least see transparency, then get Wells involved or whatever. Not that I want to be involved or have to be, but if your system and a lot of the battles I fight, and lately it's sometimes you're like, oh, that's not a hill I'll die on, but lately it's been, that's a hill I'll die on. Like if it's 10 Commandments, condoning the Charlie Kirk murder, things like that, like, okay, that's a hill I'll die on, right? Because if I won't, who else will? And why am I wasting my time, right? So allegedly, that teacher was doing that. So my main thing is, hey, let administration do their thing. Our policy says that they have 10 days to conduct an investigation. So I stayed quiet. Like I didn't jump on Facebook like I want to do. I didn't, stir up a bunch of fuss yet, right? I did at some point, but I hadn't yet. Let them do their thing. Well, then, it wasn't satisfactory to me, right? So once the system has done its thing, and I'm not satisfied, well, then that's when I have a duty, right, a sworn duty to step in and make sure that it's done right, okay? So it kind of brings on some like people think I'm targeting or whatever, right? But when I get emails from parents, like I put my email address on Facebook all the time, right? I don't put my phone number, but a lot of people have my phone number. But Facebook Messenger and my district email, I mean, I get a lot of stuff in it. But I want that. I want people to tell me what's going on or concerns. And when I get an email from multiple parents claiming that something like this happened, right? And it's very detailed. And in one case was first person, my kid heard this 1, 2, 3 bullets, right? I take that very seriously, and it pains me whenever we have other people, including board members and administrators, that don't take it as seriously. Because to me, that you can't really get any more serious than that. If it's the law that you post the 10 Commandments, you don't have to talk about them. You don't have to preach on them. You don't have to do anything with them. They just have to be there, visible, not on the floor, not in the corner, visible from anywhere in the room. That's the law, right? When you tell students you have an issue with that, and allegedly, say that you but you might as well post the satanic 10 Commandments, which I didn't even know existed. I Googled it. It exists, right? Or you have a history of bashing the President of the United States even way before Charlie Kirk passed away, right? So you already kind of have an atmosphere in your class that you're bashing the law and leadership, right? The president. You should still respect the office of president, right? Even if you don't agree with the guy. Right. And then after the Charlie Kirk thing, blew up the education system, where a lot of people were getting in trouble because of social media posts, and that's easy to prove, right? You have their social media, they snip a screenshot of it. Yeah, that can't happen. They get fired. Well, that's proof right there, right? So that started happening. Well, our issue is not social media. It's in the classroom being spoken directly to kids, which to me is by far, because social media could be that they could be home on the couch after work, right? On the couch at your house, but there's still a nexus, because the educator code of ethics, it covers you everywhere, just like me. Like, I'm always on duty. I'm always an agent, right? If I walk out here and I do something, there's a nexus to my job. Well, the Texas education code is very specific about those ethics, and it's clearly a violation. That's why TEA, is spearheading a huge investigation statewide, and that's why hundreds of teachers have been fired. But that was social media, right? This is even more serious because, and it's not just at our school, right? I even heard of another teacher at our school, just an offside chat, that someone saw my post and said, well, I heard that this teacher could have done this. No, just allegedly. So it's multiple, could be multiple teachers, but not just at our school, not just at one school. It could be several schools or other districts. So how do we combat that just as aggressively whenever it's just a kid saying something and a teacher saying something, right? It's he said, right? So we have to do a thorough investigation. And in this case, I believe was not, right? So then that's when I think I have to step in and take it to the next level, because someone speaking that in a classroom to kids, that's, if I don't stand up to that, I'm wasting my time where I'm sworn in to protect the kids.
Yeah, because these people are pouring into our kids. We give them over to them for 8 hours a day, and that's what they're pouring in. Even if he's not saying that on a regular basis, he's saying something else. You know what I mean? He's saying other things that are being impactful in their young hearts and minds that only manifest when they're given an opportunity to say something stupid like that. But they're saying other stupid things that might go under the radar, that child's might be molded by, that those children might be molded by. and we don't even know. So there's a danger of us sending our kids to the school, and that's why I think it's very important for us to have the right people overseeing. Like for instance, school board members. I'm part of the gatekeepers that you mentioned earlier, Northwest Gatekeepers, when we kind of try to oversee a lot of the issues that are going on in our schools and even in our city, and we meet together to determine who we're going to support for positions and stuff like that are going to be beneficial to our students and to our communities. And I think it's been one of the best things that I think that I've seen come out of pastors' unions and gathering together like that. Yeah. Because we're kind of protecting our kids and we're protecting our community from people that want to come in and have their agendas spread through the trust that we are putting at their disposal.
Well, at the end of the day, the Charlie Kirk movement, I'm not worried about my kid that's hearing that, right? My kid's knows Jesus. He's well grounded and rooted in his faith. And he's going to come tell me what he heard, but he's also not going to believe it.
Right.
My fear, and the reason I do what I do, is for the kid that does not have that grounding and that background and that's lost and is going to end up being one of those people on a campus questioning, Turning Point USA someday, or possibly shooting someone because they were influenced with evil, right, that obviously took root, that I know my kid would not let, but some kid that is lost and searching, which at that age they're searching for something.
That we're told that is a justifiable means of shutting somebody else who you don't agree with up. And they don't have an argument, really. They don't have any basis to their belief system, so they can't debate it. So they struggle with those emotions and frustrations, so they take it out violently, which is amazing because they're supposed to be the tolerant groups, and they're not tolerant at all. Yeah. And they think that violence is the only way to... And you saw the response to Charlie Kirk's murder. It wasn't rioting. It wasn't looting. It wasn't violence. It was people coming together to praise and worship God. Yeah. Saying, you know what, we got to take up his torch and continue to do and speak the truth that he was speaking and love the people that hate us. I mean, that's the Christ-like response, and yet it still gets attacked. It's like if we would have been burning down cities and communities and looting and stuff like that, I think they would have been better. They would have been more okay with that than the response we gave them. Yeah,
and that's the full cycle is those people in those classrooms hearing that can become that, right? And that's to me that's huge. That's a big issue, and I have to do something about it.
Yeah, I like what you said, that your child is not going to believe it. Your child is grounded, but that's because of what you are doing in their life. There's a lot of children and young people that are growing up without that father influence in their life. And even if they have a father influence in their life, it's not necessarily a godly father influence. But you are a born-again Christian. You go to Annabelle Baptist Church, I believe, with Pastor Robert Simmons, a good friend of mine, part of the Northwest Gatekeepers. How can you, or what do you say that background and that way of life has impacted you in order to even desire to want to make a difference in these schools? Because some people would just say, that's not my problem. But I think because of our faith, it kind of stirs us up to do something, doesn't it?
For sure. And, lately, like I mentioned earlier, like a lot of the stuff's negative because I'm trying to battle the negative, right? But it's also, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal, right? And Brother Robert's very good about reminding us, he always says that if you think you came to the perfect church or find the perfect church, you better leave because you're going to mess it up,
this
right?
This ain't it.
You're going to mess it up. Yeah, and this ain't it. So it's not about putting myself on a pedestal. I've messed up just like any other man. You know, and Brother Robert will remind people like, I'm the pastor, but I'm a sinner. I'm, you know, I've messed up before, right? But it's about how you rebound, you know, and it's also how you learn about forgiveness. You know, like, you know, I've had some situations where it was hard to forgive sometimes, right? And then you cross that and you make it happen, right? And you reconcile. But it also, sometimes when you're on the other end of it and people aren't really like seeing it that way or having trouble forgiving, you know, only God can work that out, right? Can convict them. But just because you're trying to do something right doesn't mean that you're perfect. You know, like Brother Roberts and the gatekeepers are doing magnificent things, right? But none of you are perfect.
Right.
And you're not putting yourself on a pedestal. You're just doing what's right and what God's called you to do.
Right.
And I think with the same principle, you know, like I've been a leader for most of my adult life and served, you know, the country and been a coach and a Sunday school teacher. And, you know, the calling, you know, without your faith and that greater understanding of that calling, like, you know, I wouldn't have the strength to do what I'm doing, and I wouldn't have the conviction, right? You know, there's been some difficult days, you know, not just in my profession, but in serving on the school board and trying to be transparent and get information out there because, you know, the attacks do come in. You know, my kids, you know, do get targeted. You know, we've dealt with issues in the schools the last few years of, you know, that doesn't really make sense. And, you know, is this because of what I'm standing for, what I'm doing? You know, my wife struggles with a lot of things that I do. We've been struggling a lot lately just with, and really the Charlie Kirk thing, when it kind of flipped a switch for me, well, flipped the switch a little bit greater, I guess, is like, now's the time, right? Like, now's the time. If we don't do it now, like, when are we? Like, my oldest is a sophomore. In a couple of years, he's gone, right? Like, my twin brother was killed in a car accident a few years ago, right? I lost my dad when I was 21 years old. He was only 54. We don't know how long we're going to be here. And then after, you know, the Charlie Kirk thing, I'm like, you know what? I've messed up, and I'm still waiting on people to forgive me, right? But that doesn't keep me from doing what I know God has called me to do, you know, and that, you know, it's fearful too, just because of like, it's a pretty big establishment, you know, that we're going up against. And, you know, I'd be lying if I didn't say that, you know, we cried together at night sometimes and praying, that, you know, that we continue to have the strength, right? Because even just like tonight, I told you I was being attacked verbally at the school board meeting by a high school teacher, that, you know, just because he has a friend that I say allegedly did something that we need to look into, you know, is automatically taken aside and saying, well, you're a bigot, you're targeting, you're what's wrong with what's going on, not this other guy. Whenever there was no investigation. So it's like, I don't know, you don't know, you know, that teacher doesn't know any more than me. Like, that's what the problem is. Like, we should be doing investigation, and we should know. And then let's make a decision after that.
Was it in public comment, or were you able to answer?
We're not able to respond.
So it was public comment?
It was public comment, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's as challenging as it is, and going back to your question, like, without, you know, just like losing my brother, like, if you don't have the faith and you don't lean on, you know, Jesus Christ, and like I've been in Brother Robert's office crying many times. You don't find men of God like that, that can still accept you like Jesus does if you mess up. And you may say the wrong thing sometimes. Like, I'm on Facebook all the time. I'm at the meeting talking. You know, I may say something I shouldn't say, or the wrong thing, right? But at the end of the day, my heart is genuine. Like, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm not perfect, but that doesn't mean that I can't carry the torch and keep pressing forward, right? With all the things that I've been through. So, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of people that will do that will step up and run for school board. I mean, we had one person want to run, and they run opposed this last cycle. You know, TM had people fighting over positions and big campaigns and people wanting to get in there and serve, right? That's another thing is, and, you know, like I mentioned earlier, like Calallen is great, right? Like I get attacked all the time. Like you hate Calallen. It's like, you think I'm, you know, watching my wife cry herself to sleep sometimes at night because I hate Calallen. Like I love Calallen that much that even in the wake of these, you know, these trials, I'm gonna push forward, right? My youngest is a 4th grader, so I'm gonna be around for a while. And so Calallen is great. We're doing a lot of great things athletically, academically. The bonds, we're building a lot of new things. Calallen is amazing. Like I wouldn't have brought my family back here. I wouldn't be serving, you know. My kids wouldn't go there, but you have to still take care of business. And the face value, Calallen's face value, they've always had a way of making that look good. But as a board member, you see behind the closed doors, and you see the paperwork, and you see the reports and the financing and all the stuff happening. So it's a bigger picture, but it's much deeper than just we won state championships and we have all the bonds. If it's going to uphold
that, it's going to take people like you in the background and behind the scenes that is fighting to keep that.
Yeah,
it doesn't just happen. And you know, you got some fans with the Northwest Gatekeepers. We talk highly about you and what you're doing. There's how can I say this? We are champions and big fans of manhood. And when we see somebody like yourself that is out there in the grind, in the trenches, doing and moving, and you're doing it on different fronts, it's very inspiring, and it's very motivational to us to continue to do what we do as pastors, and you know the little things we do over here as the gatekeepers, and trying to really kind of give y'all an opportunity to do what you guys do, because y'all are doing it well. So we appreciate that, and just want to encourage you to keep it up and keep doing what God has called you to do. And because I believe that's what it is. It's a calling. It's a purpose that God has raised you up for. And there'll be others. I believe that the more you do what you are doing, the more it'll inspire other people to rise up to do the same.
Yeah, well, I thank you for what you do and the gatekeepers, and a lot of people don't. Well, some people know, but you may not know that Brother Robert's brother Bill mentored me as a young man at River Hills Baptist.
Awesome.
And I was on the staff there a short time, and that was a crucial part of my growth. And then when I lost my dad, Brother Bill was, you know, right there and a big part of that. And of course, he's gone on to be with the Lord, and you know, Brother Robert's been our pastor for a while, and I've had to lean and cry on him before. But it's men like you, because I know you've had people in your church come in to your office, lean on you, cry, and you're there. So that works both ways. Like I can't do what I do without what y'all are doing, and I think that's a perfect picture of what, you know, like you said, the manhood, but also what God's called us to be is you know, as men, but also as disciplers, and you know, it's very encouraging.
Amen. I talk a lot about the mentors, that without a custom motto, there wouldn't be a Mike Tyson. Without a Mickey, there wouldn't be a Rocky. so I do believe I have a pastor that I go to, and I believe every man should know how to humble themselves and submit to another man, and it takes them to higher levels as a man when you're able to do that. So, Mr. Edward Wells, thank you so much for joining me today, and it's been a pleasure, man.
It has. It has. Thank you so much.
So we'll be praying for future endeavors that you have. I can't wait to see what it is or what else God has in store for you. So I'm excited about that. So God bless you.
I'm a little scared, but I'm excited too.
Yeah. Well, if you ain't scared, you're not doing something right? There should be a little risk involved and a little trepidation to do what God has called us to do. So amen. I'm glad you said that.
Thank you.
That lets me know that you're proceeding into waters where you need to be in. So, man. So once again, thank you for joining me in the den.
Thank you for having me very much.